And then we'll be doing the second question with yourself, Bruno. This one does come from an agent, and the agent states that we have a tenant that has given notice yesterday, which was the 9th, to move out at the end of the month. According to the tenant, they do not need to give a calendar month's notice if their lease is expiring at the end of April. They only need to give 20 business days notice. Please, can you clarify this for me, Bruno?
All right. So the first thing, so what I'm hearing here is that the lease is actually expiring at the end of April. So what normally happens in situations like this is the fixed term lease, it expires at the end of April. So there is technically no more lease past the end of April. So from 1st May, the lease is done. It's expired, it's lapsed, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's terminated. So there is no fixed term agreement. In fact, I mean, there will be no fixed term agreement after the end of April, and there is no need for notice. So the tenant doesn't have to give any sort of notice at all regarding them leaving the property. There are certain requirements by the landlord. If the landlord has, for example, a renewal clause in the agreement that entitles the agreement simply to renew, but the landlord does need to take certain steps in order for that renewal clause to kick in. So this question doesn't mention anything about a renewal clause, but if there is a renewal clause, just note that it doesn't just apply automatically. And this is in the spirit of the consumerism or consumer protection in South Africa, where everyone just tried to get people to auto-subscribe and auto-renew. And our consumer legislation stopped it, saying, listen, we don't mind the auto anything, but you need to give a certain notice, and the tenant needs to be aware and opt into that sort of renewal. So that's the first thing. If there is a renewal and the landlord did nothing, then too bad. Lease is expiring at the end of April. Tenant doesn't have to give any notice at all, 20 business days or otherwise. I think that's actually the simplest, shortest answer to this. I mean, I can go into notice periods, month-to-month agreements in case the lease doesn't expire at the end of April. But yeah, the 20 days business notice simply refers to Section 14 of the CPA that deals with fixed-term agreements and says that a tenant at any point in the lease is entitled to cancel a lease agreement on 20 business days notice, but this may subject it to a cancellation, a penalty, early termination penalty. But that's normally when the lease is persisting. So let's say expiration was at the end of the year and tenant wanted to get out by end of April, 20 business days notice now would be a bit too late. But 20 business days notice would allow the tenant to terminate the lease, but they might have to pay a penalty if they do so. Month-to-month lease agreements, you typically need to give a full calendar month. So if this is what the tenant finds himself in, the lease then doesn't technically expire at the end of April. It would only expire once he gives the calendar month notice, which will start counting from the first of the month till the end of the month.
There you have it. Yeah, so thank you very much, Bruno. And that does bring us to the end of today's questions and answers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the videos, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.